reached the part of the game where the different creators of the fabulous new technology that's going to change the world have started suing each other. And I find that entertaining. Nothing more needs to be said. I'm just telling you, I find it entertaining. I'm not going to defend that. I just find it entertaining, okay?
That's fine.
Fine.
It's great. Fine.
Yeah, it's awesome. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. We have a guest, Sarah Elkins, guest host, really.
Hello.
We have some guest hosts that appear. Sarah Elkins is one of them. Sarah Elkins has appeared on Funny Not Funny a number of times before, and usually we talk about very interesting movies or books or topics, actually. One time we talked about whether the universe was made of ideas, which was enraging. And happy to have you back. This time we're going to talk about, well, two movies. Wait, two movies and a third movie, I think, that Lionel actually turned us on to that was related, that I found interesting. No, a third series of TV shows from a long time ago. Yeah. And the two movies are Grass. Now, what's the full title? I just call it Grass, but it's
A Nation Battles for Survival or something like that?
Yeah.
A Nation's Battle for Life.
A Nation's Battle for Life.
Yeah. Really, really intense. And it was made in 1925. It's a really early documentary, maybe one of the first documentaries made. And the other one is Daughters of the Dust, which was also luckily not by the Italian director Sica, Vittorio Sica.
De Sica.
But De Sica. But you were right, Sarah. Different than everything else I think that we've watched so far.
Great.
Completely different style.
That's what I was going for when I made the suggestion.
Yeah. So I don't know how we should proceed. Lionel, do you want to launch into what you were thinking when you saw? Should we talk about Grass first, or maybe Daughters of the Dust first?
Well, Grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing about Grass, so to set it up for everybody who's listening, Grass is a little over an hour. It's a silent film. It's a travelogue. It's black and white. And like a silent film, it has these cards. Every now and then there's a card that explains, it has some kind of text on it that explains what's going on. And the film is basically a documentary of the migration of a transhumant pastoralist herd, a group of people in Persia and Iraq called the Bakhtiari. And it's a rather harrowing trip that they have to make with all their flocks. They have to cross raging rivers, and they have to walk across basically the what looks like the Himalaya mountains barefoot in the snow. And what I found, it's a good movie to watch. I found the version that has music. When they reissued it in like 19 something, they actually got like Kyrgyzstani yes? What, Sarah?
I was waving my fingers excitedly because that's cool that you found a version that had intentional music. I found my own music to go in with it, but I'd love to hear more about your remastered version that you found.
Yeah, it's like music from that area. It's a lot of oud and a lot of santur and a lot of these Persian instruments, and I thought it was really good. Mm-hmm. And that was on the Criterion Channel, the version that's posted on the Criterion Channel. I think they actually did that around the time they came out with Daughters of the Dust. I think it's a 1990s thing. But anyway, so that's sort of in a nutshell Grass. Now, what I found fascinating about it, there's a couple of things I found really fascinating about it. One, the movie's kind of harrowing. Yeah. It's not dire and it's not gruesome and it's not horrific, but they're photographing some real things going on here. And then the placards are so goofy. They put like the interstitial placards. Like people are walking barefoot. These 4-year-old kids are walking barefoot up like the Himalayas, and they put a placard that says "Brr." I'm like, right. It's a little more than
Yeah.
But
Right. It was
So goats
almost
don't make it.
It was
Yeah.
almost animated, the burr. They were doing
Right.
more with the title cards than I was expecting, because there were
Yeah.
things like when there was the giant windstorm, it's like the words were moving around like they were being waved
yeah.
by the wind. So I
No, they're
love
having
that.
a
That was a little more than I was expecting.
It was too, and I was like, part of me said this is kind of inappropriate, and part of me says this is a nice relief. At least they're having, it sort of cuts the tension a little bit. The other thing which I thought was fascinating about the movie is, which they don't make clear in the movie, is that the Bakhtiari do this twice every year.
Oh.
They go over the mountain, and then 6 months later they come back over it.
Yeah.
They are transhumant pastoralists, which means they have to move their flocks constantly because they have to go where the grass is for the flocks, because they completely live on the flocks. And if they stay in one place, what the hell are you smiling
I'm
about?
sorry. They are what? They're transhumanist pastoralists?
Transhumant, TRANSHUMANT, transhumant
Human
pastoralists. Which
pastoralists.
means
right.
they're migrating shepherds. They basically are permanently shepherds who are constantly moving their flocks back and forth. They have really no fixed place of abode.
Right.
And so they do this twice a year. So it looks harrowing, but honestly, and you figure, and then, and of course the documentary builds tension. It's like they've hit a cliff wall, 2,000 precipice of solid rock. What will they do? And it's like, they've been here before.
They do
Trust
it every
me.
year.
They do it every year. They know exactly. They know exactly where the path is.
You see
They
the
know
eye roll from the Bakhtiari.
They know where the Hojo is. They know.
Yeah.
They know where the rest stops are. They're good with it. And as I mentioned in my email to you guys, this reminded me of, I met them before. I met the Bakhtiari before, back when I was a kid watching Jacob Bronowski's The Ascent of Man. And he did a great job. And he did a great job. And his was a little more harrowing than theirs. He didn't focus on the danger of the trip, but he said, if the elderly people can't make it, they're left behind.
They didn't put that in the documentary.
They don't put that in the documentary.
It's a particular river, right? I forget the name of the river that they have to cross. That is just deadly, and they have to swim it. In the documentary, they made flotation devices out of goat skins. In I've already forgotten his name. In the 1970s mention of it in The Dawn of Man, they just swim. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, what happened? Did the people who knew how to make because those goat skins were not easy to make, right? You could tell.
They're not easy to make.
That was like a high level of skill to even inflate them. And they had to patch them up.
Right.
And then they made rafts out of it. But in the 1970s, what he's showing is just people jumping in the water and swimming across.
Yeah, who knows?
Some of them don't make it.
Right. Well, the thing he also says, the point he's trying to make is that, if the elderly if you can't keep up, you get left behind. This is the nature of a society like this. Because what he's talking about, Bronowski's talking about the emergence of cities.
Yep.
And he says, to understand what a city means, to understand what settled life is, you have to go to what came before it. And this is what it is. And what he drives home is that, there's no possessions, there's really no memory, there's no change, because you can only take what you can carry on your back, and you're not going to carry anything that's not absolutely essential to you. So nothing ever changes. And if you can't make it, it's like, okay, we're going to leave you by the side of the river. Bye. Say hello to the wolves for us. And so it's, that's the point he was making in that whole thing, the point he was trying to make is that a society like that doesn't evolve any further. Culturally does not evolve.
You saw the Dawn of Man episode?
Yes, I
or
watched
part of
The
it?
Ascent of Man. I think it's the second episode of the series, which was on PBS in the 70s, I think. So I watched the first 20 minutes of that, which went a little further than the Bactrians. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that, but that
Bakhtiari. The Bakhtiari, I think. Yeah.
And it was very interesting. I don't necessarily agree with Jacob Bronowski on everything he said. It's certainly true that if you have a very large tribal group that has all the sheeps and goats and cows that can possibly live on a patch of land, yeah, one day, and they have to move on. But you don't have to have a tribe that's big. I mean, he's kind of making some assumptions here. There are plenty of farmers that starve to death. There are plenty of people in cities that have to work 3 jobs to stay alive. And he's saying, oh, the nomad tribes, had to be hand to mouth every day and there was no time for leisure. And I'm like, you're kind of making some assumptions there, because
maybe
there
not. Yeah.
have definitely been some people on pasture lands where there was tons of grass and they only had to move maybe every 3 months or something like that. So he's making some assumptions there to make his point, saying mankind couldn't evolve until we moved away from nomadic life.
72.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's 72. You
But
got to
that's
cut
really
off some
important.
slack.
That's an interesting point, though. That's an important point. Is that
Yeah.
the Bakhtiari have two patches of land
Right.
that they can stay in.
Right.
Now, that might be defined by old, tribal disputes, and certainly by
That's right.
modern cities and towns that have grown up in the areas. So yeah, they just have a particularly long trek, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case for all nomadic people.
Right. I mean, I thought
the Laplanders, for example.
that's right.
Oh,
Right, and they made the point in the documentary that the Laplanders just follow the animals, but
That's true. It's different.
the tribes that have domesticated animals kind of to the point of stupidity can't just follow them around as they migrate and find grass. They have to be the ones that move those stupid sheep who can't think for themselves.
Over there. No, over there. I said, where I'm pointing. Where I'm pointing. No.
In defense of goats and sheep, they just don't have migratory patterns. I mean,
Yeah.
Is that because they were domesticated or because they just don't work like that?
Right.
Because they choose those animals,
Right.
they have to lead and not follow. That's the main thing about the Bakhtiari. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fascinating. I had no idea about any of this.
yeah, I thought I'm really glad, Lionel, that you pointed to that as kind of to the Bronowski, The Ascent of Man, as a kind of a different angle on the 1925 movie that we watched. I thought both were really interesting, and even though I disagree with some of what Bronowski said, he had a ton of good information in there too about it. The differences between the migrations. One thing that came along is now a number of that tribe migrate by rail. And I guess like on some Indian railroads, they stick a lot of their animals on, I mean, clearly in the Bronowski, in The Ascent of Man, like Lionel said, yeah, they were just jumping in the water instead of building goatskin rafts and so on.
Right.
Maybe they didn't have 3,000 goat skins lying around anymore to build rafts with. But there have definitely been some changes in the way they do their migration, but a lot of it is, I'm sure, still extremely tough. The 1925 thing, there were 3 white people, Anglos, who went with them for this documentary. They were the first to ever go on this migration route with them, at least from the whole way, to the end. And they got an ambassador to sign off on this at the end of their journey. That was the last few shots of this documentary, where they were showing the document that said, yes, I attest, these are the first, and I forget if it said Americans, white people, or European descent, something like that, to go with them. But my understanding is, so there were 2 guys and a woman, and I think maybe the woman is the one who knew about it first.
She's the adventurer. The lady's the adventurer. She's the one who's in the shot. The 2 guys, one guy was sort of like, I guess, the business manager, and the other one was the cameraman. So you never see them.
Right.
You never see them again.
Right. You see them right at the start. So those 2 guys that you see at the start, you see the woman popping up now and then in videos as she's, walking through snow and all of that. The 2 guys, Uh, so Marion Cooper,
That's right.
he's who got me interested in that. That's the director of King Kong 8 years later. 1933. That's yeah, Marion Cooper. He did several documentaries. He was a reporter earlier, and he got more and more into film. And then, after this documentary had some success, he did some more, and then managed to get into doing King Kong. So it's really,
Wow.
I mean, of course, King Kong has its issues. It's got racist views of tribes and so on, but
But it's got a gorilla grabbing a biplane. I mean, come on.
yeah.
How can you lose?
Right.
We can overlook the other stuff.
Right. So I mean, it's not that racism isn't important, but the
Tie the white woman to the post.
what I was
that'll do it.
What I was interested in was just I wanted to see this documentary that this guy had done, and I kind of think of Carl Denham, the obsessed director from King Kong. He's the one that drags this whole film crew off to Skull Island to do the movie, and his drive and ambition. I kind of think of that as Marion Cooper making this movie, and the other guy that's with him on this journey was with him on King Kong and a bunch of films in between too. So so I just found the story of the making of the movie interesting, as well as yes, seeing these people on a journey that nobody else had ever been on before. And there had been some shorter documentary clips of various things, various people and so on doing things, but this was only the second film that's called ethnographic documentary, where you're embedded with a local people for a good amount of time.
What's the first one? Nanook of the North?
That's right.
That's usually held forth as like the original documentary, like the groundbreaking work.
But this was the first, and it was only a year or two later. So anyway, there were a lot of scenes in it that caught my eye. I watched the cheap Wikipedia page version, not the Criterion.
There's a YouTube version without music. That's okay. It's actually a different edit.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What I did was I searched for, because the journey, they start in Ankara, Turkey, which I think we now call Ankara, and moved across at least two rivers. One of them was the rapids, and the other was a more simple ford across the river operation, and big mountains. And they wind up in Persia/Iran. And I noticed in the documentary, it actually mentions Iran, which I thought was a term that came along later than 1925, but there it is in the movie, so that's fine. Anyway, so they're making this migration, and there were some fascinating moments in there. From the middle of the movie, this old guy with a musket, an old gun, where you see him pack in the powder, and then you see him stick in some kind of shot or pellet or something, and then you see him put in the wadding, and then you see him take a long, thin stick, a metal rod, and pack it all down. And then he has this portable
I couldn't believe
it's a portable hunting screen that he kind of, it's sort of like unfolding an umbrella. And, he just
has two little eye holes in it. I love that.
Yes, it's got a lot of holes in it. And then he camps out by a cliff. And first he picks off a bird. And in the documentary, you actually see the bird falling down the cliff. And then he takes out a 150-pound goat from that cliff. And that was just really interesting to me to see, his techniques. And
think of it, now that you mentioned it to me, I agree with you. And think about the camera work. Like what they did, I was really impressed with the camera work for 1925, and they're in the middle of nowhere. It's not like they can call DHL and have another reel of film like driven in by FedEx. They got to take everything with them in a challenging situation. But the way they filmed him doing all those steps, loading that rifle, I bet you there was a lot of editing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I find it a little bit weird, don't you? He shot a goat, and what do they have in plenty?
That's not one of their goats, man.
I know, they don't want to shoot one of their goats. But
Yeah.
you know, the thing that I was aware of is like he's so hidden, but there's the camera guy with the camera going, you know, it's like,
oh yeah, it's all
know.
Make believe.
I don't know.
Hey, Zoe.
I know a movie they made later. They kind of, or another movie this is compared to, Chang, which I think they were also involved in. For that one, they recreated some scenes. My understanding is this documentary was more just a lot of shooting and a lot of editing. And I don't know how they covered up the noise of, the recording and all of that, but maybe they all had little hunting blinds with them too.
Well, he plugged that ibex from a long way away.
Yeah.
I mean, if you believe the shot, he was pretty far away, which I don't believe. I mean,
is an ibex a goat? Or
it was the big mountain goat with the big curls, as a
not one that they would have with them, yeah.
Oh, no.
But I mean, that gun from like 1820.
Yeah, I mean, shooting your own herd would be kind of like eating your own seed corn.
Yeah,
that's what you have for your milk for your babies and all of that. So anyway, that part was interesting. A couple of the saddest shots to me, there was no real commentary on them, and maybe it's my squeamish 2020 sensibility, but one of the very first shots in that documentary is a poor bear cub that's being made to dance around for the entertainment. And that was a little upsetting to see.
Brutal.
I mean,
it was brutal.
Those people had brutal lives, but it was still upsetting to me to see that.
Mm-hmm. And I think the attitude in 1925 was just regarding animals in general was
very
sort of like,
different
isn't this cute? And he's like, he's poking this bear cub.
Yeah. And then the other thing, a couple of silent shots. You talked about the harrowing crossing of the river, where there are a couple of times when they're filming the river crossing where you see an animal that's swimming and it goes under.
Yes.
And it never comes back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say, so that animal's dead. We're left to figure it out. But yeah, there were animals that died. And there was something with the leader of the 50,000 tribes people and 500,000 animals, I think, is what was said in the documentary. And the leader said, it's going to be a good year if we only lose 10% of our animals in the crossing. And
that's right.
I'm like, wow. Yeah.
Well, and Bronowski talks about that too.
Oh, maybe I got
the amount of attrition in the river.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But we saw it in the documentary. I mean, it was certainly
we saw it
aligned.
Yep.
But I just want to say one thing, and then we should move on to the next film. But the it's funny that Bronowski is like, they don't have time to invent. They don't have time to, what's the word? They don't have time, to update their equipment, to create new, to invent new.
And he even said they don't have time to develop any culture. And I just think that's wrong.
Which I think is kind of weird. I mean, especially because you notice there is a piece of technology in the 1925 documentary, which he must have watched, and that wasn't present in the 1970 documentary that he shot. And that was those flotation devices, which were not anything to sneeze at. They were really quite impressive, considering you have to carry everything with you. Right. I mean, he had some good points, Bronowski did, but there were definitely huge blind spots, I think, because he's trying to make this whole point, and some of it's biblical, and whatever. It's still very interesting. Right. I thought it was a great show.
Before they start on their big migration, there's a whole scene where this leader of the tribe, who's the best at everything, they show him dancing, and there's music. And so it's not that they don't have culture. They probably have a great storytelling culture too. That's just oral, and so that doesn't get nearly as much cred from Westerners as written history does. And so yeah, I'm really glad to have seen this. I would never have watched it if I hadn't been looking into what else did the director of King Kong do. And I'm really glad that I got to watch it. I am glad that I found that Turkish music to watch along on the Wikipedia version, which was probably not as good quality, a showing as the Criterion. But it was good enough for me to really be absorbed by watching the whole hour and 10 minutes.
So here's another interesting thing, another rabbit hole that I went down, which has unusual connections to our present day, which is the Bakhtiari, of course, still exist. And a lot of them settled down. And they became a significant factor in Iranian politics and were instrumental in the various revolutions in Iran. I think they were instrumental perhaps in putting the Shah on the throne and had an effect in him being toppled. You can read about it. It's fascinating.
Wow.
And so there is a line leading from that documentary right up to today with the Bakhtiari. Interesting stuff. I read that. That's all. That's all I just want to point out. The Bakhtiari are still alive and kicking. And the other thing also that it really reminds me of something that I'm really something that has always obsessed me, and which I'm studying even more now, which is, every now and then these people come out of nowhere and blow everything up. Okay. The Mongols, the Vikings, the Magyars, the Huns, Timberland. Where are they coming from? I mean, and why do they come over here? Like, what's going on? Where are these people coming from?
It's funny how you went from talking about Iran and to people who just show up out of nowhere and start blowing things up. But I'm going to let you get back to what you were saying.
Yeah. But I'm talking about like mass migrations. I'm talking about like the Mongols. It's like, why in the middle of the 1200s? Go ahead. You have something to say,
So
Hera?
At least for the Vikings, current scholarship is saying they think there was a big climate change that was pushing the Vikings. They could longer grow their happy. A lot of Vikings were agrarians, and then suddenly it's too cold. Our crops aren't happening. We've got to go find food somewhere. Hey, look, that village has food. We're taking that.
Well, thanks for stealing my narrative thunder there, okay? Because that's what I was working up to.
A little Ice Age. I called this.
I didn't realize that was a rhetorical question, Lionel, that you already had the answer going there. What? Sorry.
I'm going to rage quit this damn podcast. No, but the whole point, right. I think the missing actor. So another thing I'm fascinated by is history is mostly, when we talk about history, we're mostly talking about books. We're mostly talking about books. And the problem is there's a very large part of this planet that there's no books about. And it's that huge Central Asian steppe, which includes the lands of the Bakhtiari, which includes Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan and Mongolia. It is incomprehensibly enormous. And everybody says, oh, there's nothing in there. It's the steppes of Central Asia. It's empty. It's like, even if there's like one person per square mile, that's like a couple of million people. Okay. Right, and the thing is that if the weather's good and the forage is good, you can support a lot of people because that's a lot of horses and that's a lot of herd animals and you can live really well. But if things go bad and there's a drought, you've got a lot of people who are very good at moving around. That's the one thing they really know how to do. They know how to get their ass in gear and go to the left or go to the right. And they're probably really adept at like bow and arrow or whatever kind of weapon is around. And that's why you have the Mongols who come out of nowhere in the 1200s and basically whack the entire world. So I'm just fascinated by I'm fascinated by the history of lands without history, the forgotten people, as the producers of that movie say so breathlessly at the beginning. We're going to go find the forgotten people. It's like, there's a lot of forgotten people. And they've really impacted history quite a bit because it's like the Magyars. The Magyars came from Central Asia. And they got to a certain point, and then they had an argument amongst themselves. And a bunch of them went north, and a bunch of them kept going straight. And the ones who went north turned into the Finns. And the ones who went straight became the Hungarians, the Magyars, because those are the only two members of what are called the Finnic-Uric language group. But I digress.
Watch your mouth.
So that's enough. I've pissed away enough time on that one. What do you want to talk about Daughters of the Dust?
I do, but first I want to say that aside from the people who are currently in the comments section on Patreon, if you want to support this independent podcast, please consider becoming a member of our Patreon account. And Lionel's, yes. So producing this podcast sounds like it's an easy thing. We just have a conversation. But the truth is there's a lot of cleanup. Each of the episodes is at least 2.5 hours of editing. And it also does cost something to run the software that we need to do all this stuff. So it does take something, and it really would, a little bit from you would help. So if you're interested, go to our website, which is funnynotfunny.bigego.com or funnynotfunny.net. They both go to the same place. Or just go right to the Patreon, which is my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jim Infantino, which is phonetic. So that's all for that. Thank you so much. And then we are going to talk about another forgotten people in Daughters of the Dust, which I also found really fascinating. Great choice, Sarah.
Thank you.
So I don't know, maybe I can say a little something, because I think my ideas about it are very vague. First of all, the style of the film is dreamlike and yet anything but a dream. But it has a kind of a magical realism feel. There's something about the living on those islands that are sort of only just barely islands right off the coast of Georgia, that gives this sense of just sort of being stranded on a beach and forming a civilization. And of course, they were brought there as slaves and then held on to, something of the Yoruba culture and traditions. And it's wonderful. And it's about an extended family that is breaking apart. And of course, it's a fictionalized account, but it's real. And I found it delightful and unlike anything I had really seen before. Sarah, what made you recommend this film, aside from all the great things?
Well,
or including all the great things?
I saw this movie when it came out in 1991. I had gone to college in Charleston, South Carolina, this Gullah culture that's Gullah Geechee that's featured in the movie is off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. And I knew a little bit about them, but it wasn't, I had graduated and moved away, and then this movie came out, and it blew me away how much I didn't know when I saw the movie. There's a whole world going on there, and I have learned since then about some of the visual details that are not really explained in the movie, and it's just so rich, and I loved it because it showed me there was a whole world I'd been unaware of that was right by me. I would walk right by the old ladies weaving sweetgrass baskets, which you see one little scene of that happening in the movie. And, I was well disposed towards them, but clearly so ignorant of so much going on. So much history in that movie. I think a lot of people have forgotten about it, but this wonderful remastered version came out in 2016, which added subtitles, which weren't there before, which made it much more easy for a lot of people to take in and appreciate it. Now, I had an ear for that speech. It's kind of a Gullah Creole, and a lot of people, when I talked to people, like I reviewed it on Usenet at the time, very excited about it, and someone was like, I couldn't understand a word they were saying, and I was like, I went to college. I heard that. I had enough of an ear for it that immersed I could follow along with no subtitles in 1991. So anyway, I wanted more people to see it. There are perhaps some. I'm not sure I would. There were a couple of parts that maybe not everyone would appreciate, which we can get into if we want to do any dramatic criticism. But for me, a lot of the movie is is about the importance of the stories we tell about ourselves, and that
Mhm.
those stories can change over time, the stories we tell about each other, and particularly in family. Having had some family issues since then that had not blown up in 1991, seeing this family that some of them care so much about staying together, others of them are completely dismissive of some members of the family. There's a lot of emotional content to this movie and a lot of history. It's so rich. And I can talk more about it, but I'll just stop for now because Lionel hasn't said anything yet. Would you like to say anything,
Don't
Lionel?
let Lionel say anything. Let me
Oh,
add a little something to this.
very
I
well.
just want to put a little context in for people who haven't seen it. The so what we're really looking at is a community of people that have stayed since they were freed, and it's taking place in the early
1902.
1900s. 1902, it's specifically 1902, at which point, so they had been there since the slaves, and slavery ended a little later, I think, in
Some parts
on
of
these
South
islands, right?
Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also the location of Igbo Point or Ebo Point, which is a very famous story about slaves that had been brought over and turned around. That I think that had they overcame the people on the ship, the slavers, and they walked into the sea with their chains on, and there were a number of mythologies that grew up out of that. They were told by the people of Ebo Point, and right. I mean, it is a so obviously the whole community is black, but except that there is also a Native American population living
Right.
nearby or somewhere, and also intermarrying sometimes. And so then some people were called yellow, and I don't know if that was in relation to like whether there was one of the
So
First Nations.
so
Yeah.
that's a term uh, in racial differentiation, quote racial, where if you had a white parent, your skin was lighter, and those, depending on how much less completely black you look, those people were called by each other high yellow.
High
Um,
yellow.
and so,
Yellow Mary was one of the
right, there's a
characters.
whole
Yeah.
plot point with one of the characters who's whiter than most of the other black people on the island, but she's from that family. And so all these things going on in the movie showing, they're dealing with frequent rapes by white people, and
Yeah.
and in some cases the family gets over it, and in others they feel the person is ruined and completely arms, you're no longer one of us. So there's so much going on in this movie that is not
It's
all spelled
unexplained.
out. This is an
Oh,
immersive
it's not spelled
movie.
out at all. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this is not a hand holding for white people movie.
And we should let Lionel talk. I was just kidding, Lionel. I'm sorry.
No, I'm listening. I'm just listening.
So what do you think we might have missed? I mean, I watched this once. So
Okay.
given what you know,
Right.
what more? Yeah, go ahead.
So, local religion. The one of the characters, Hagar, I think is her name, is very, very negative about what she calls hoodoo, what other
Hoodoo.
people of the area call root magic or roots
Mhm.
magic. So two big things going on that I noticed that were part of the movie. There's the bottle trees. Now,
Yeah.
for some Southerners, bottle trees are specifically to catch evil spirits. So the idea is that the spirits get in and they're trapped like mosquitoes or something in the bottles
Mhm.
and can't get out.
Mm.
But other Southerners look at bottles as ways of honoring ancestors. And both of those things are happening in this movie because
Yeah.
Nana, the grandmother of the family, seems to be in it for honoring family. She cares so much about the family. Look at what they survived. They've got to keep being a family is her idea.
Yeah. Can't
And yet
forget.
one of her grandchildren, Eli, is furious that these bottle trees haven't protected them. That his wife Eula was raped, and he
Right.
takes a big stick and smashes up.
Yeah, that was a big scene.
Right. So that's one thing that's going on. Another thing going on. You may have noticed that Nana is she works on little purses, tiny little purses. Those leather pouches are fetishes, and they are a protection, a family thing. There's a part where she pulls out. She's redoing some fetishes to take for the family who are doing the Great Migration, which is most of them. Most of them are going to leave these islands and are part of the whole Great Migration trend of the time. She's opening up these little fetish bags, and so takes out, here's my mother's hair, and puts it back in, and now I've added my own hair. So there are a lot of little visual elements like that. There was a lingering scene when Eli and Eula are at different times going through their local family cemetery. And you can see that there is these decorations and art objects and so on that have been attached to some of these grave markers. I'm sure they mean something,
right?
And I don't know what. So those are few of the things that those names.
The names are heavy. I mean, and Nana talks about, we still, even though we're free, we still keep the old slave names like Iona.
Right.
Yeah, or Iwana, or Iona, or and there were a couple of others.
Right.
And when you hear that, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Ow.
And Eli, when he's so upset in the cemetery and pretty much yelling at Nana, his grandmother, he's upset and he kind of reels and hangs onto a tombstone that has the name Eli Palmer on it.
Right.
From, his name is Eli. There's all these family names that keep repeating. So those are certainly some of the visual aspects. Oh, and we should talk about, this is such a gorgeous film.
It really is beautiful.
The islands of South Carolina and Georgia, these big, huge trees they're hanging on, the gorgeous beaches. This is a movie I wouldn't, but you could just turn off the sound and watch because there's so much.
You don't have to really understand, what they're saying. It is, and I don't. What did you think, Lionel? So several times we're talking about the migration, and the people are going to have the family. Most of the family, except for a few, are going to leave and move to the north. And I keep thinking, don't go. Don't go. It's so beautiful here. You have no idea. You think that it's going to be so much better in Nova Scotia and Boston and New York. And it's like, in 1902, ouch.
Well, in those lands, the reasons those slaves and Cherokee were able to hide out and hang out there was because those lands were seen as valueless. Because they were constantly being assaulted by hurricanes. So you couldn't do a lot of building there that would last. True. So, different ways of looking at country at the same time. A couple of other things from the movie. One, they talked about indigo, and they showed the making of indigo.
Yes.
Being put into indigo blocks. So Eliza Pinckney, in the 1700s, rich Charleston, she married into a Charleston family, and she made it rich because she is the one who brought indigo cash crop cultivation and processing to Charleston. She read about it. She figured out how to do it. They were doing some over in Jamaica and so on, but she was the financial genius who founded the Pinckneys. Later on were senators and congressmen, and basically they ruled Charleston for a long time.
Pre-slavery, Eliza Pinckney.
Pre-slavery, and then post-slavery. Pre-emancipation.
What am I talking about? Pre-emancipation.
Right.
When was pre-slavery?
Well,
was what? 1200?
Well, but
Never mind.
that was what ramped up a lot of the slaving in South Carolina, because they didn't know how to make money really much. They were doing a lot of subsistence crop farming, and then she came up with indigo. And rice came after that. Really, indigo was the first cash crop of the Carolinas and Georgia.
And they had cotton on the island too. I noticed that was a very
there was some, but you couldn't make money off
it was
that
mostly
the way
indigo,
you
yeah.
could off of indigo. I mean, India was doing cotton, and so anyway, there's so much history in this, and they talk about it a little. You see that some of the women have black stained hands, and that's from the indigo processing. And you see some of them smearing indigo that they've processed into bricks for shipment. And that's one of the memories. I'm not sure. I don't think that was actually happening at this family reunion weekend. There were memory pictures that come up partway during the movie.
It jumps back to her childhood, to Nana's childhood, a few times. But she said it poisoned our hands, that it poisoned us.
Yeah.
So indigo is poisonous.
Like any processing, if you don't care about the people who are doing it, they're likely to suffer from the effects of the work.
Yeah. And that gumbo, I wanted some.
Oh, that wonderful feast that they prepare.
Oh.
There's so many things going on. Viola, the Christian, the member of the family who's very Christian, and she's trying to get everyone to give up the old ways. She doesn't want them to kiss the book that Nana has put together, which is family, because she dismisses the whole thing as hoodoo. But she's a human being. She's not just some bad villain character, because you see her smiling, you see her spending a lot of time with the children, reading to them and talking to them. She brought along that photographer because she wants their way of life. She wants that to be captured. She wants the family to, she wants them to have those photos forever. And so Hagar also, I think I've got her name wrong, but anyway, the other woman of the family who's so negative to Yellow Mary and others, she's in many ways an even less sympathetic character. But there are moments where during that big, wonderful feast that they're all having, she's smiling and laughing and gets on better clearly with some members of the family than others. It's kind of...
She married in, though, didn't she? Wasn't she from
She married in, yes.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that they're paying attention to. They talk about the griots who had to keep track because the masters, the slavers, weren't keeping track of who was whose daughter, and then making them, and that's real history. They would make sons have children with sisters or mothers or others, and the griots were the Africans, the enslaved people, who were keeping track of all of that, so that they at least would know what was going on. Lionel, you tried to say something.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, all right.
No.
What did you think, Lionel? What was your impression of the film?
I was really confused.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what's going on here, really? I mean, generally, you get sort of the sense of this is a extended family of people and everybody's going to move away, but Nana may be staying, and that's about as far as I got. I was just like, okay, why are they coming here on boat? Where are they coming from? What caused them to come here? And there was Yellow Mary, but accompanying Yellow Mary was this other woman.
Yeah,
who never says a word.
Yeah.
Pretty, beautiful women.
No, but I'm saying, who the hell is she?
So
that was a little racy, I thought. Like, there was kind of a love affair going on. I thought.
Yeah. So she brought her girlfriend Trula with her because this was going to be her last visit to the island, and she wanted Trula to see where she came from. And near the end of the movie, Trula realizes, oh, Yellow Mary's not coming back with me. She's going to stay with her grandmother. I have lost the love of my life. And she goes running
Yep.
off into the field for a while. And then you see her at I think the very last shot of the movie is her on the boat. Trula's on the boat with the rest of the family, and doing a very small little hand wave to Yellow Mary that she's probably never going to see again.
Okay.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Yellow
I didn't
Mary was
watch the
the one
last
with
8 minutes.
yeah.
They were full-on lovers,
This
yeah.
movie is not trying to tell a very linear experience. There's the whole thing with the baby girl who hasn't been born yet narrating
Right,
part
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
movie. There's a lot going on that, I mean, to me, this movie bears rewatching. But and it can be, certainly some people bounce right off it because it's not your standard narrative. And Julie Dash said she was tired of the standard narrative and wanted to do something different. So
Mhm. Yeah. It's okay. I'm sorry. I just honestly speaking,
sure.
I didn't. What it reminded me of was a story I read one time in the Wall Street Journal, and it was a story about how Mattel had the opportunity to was approached about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they turned it down. And it's considered one of the most epic failures in the history of toy manufacturing in America. Like that, Mattel turned this down, and they interviewed the president of Mattel. He says, "Yeah, the story is this: a bunch of dead dinosaurs, the spirits of dead dinosaurs have been reincarnated into the bodies of turtles with names taken from Renaissance artists, and they joined forces to battle a person called Rita Repulsa who lives on the moon." Yeah, I didn't get it. I'll be the first one to stand up and say, yeah, I didn't buy it. And I just sort of felt that way watching this movie. I was like, okay, I mean, you get sort of the basic idea, but it's just, and also I just didn't feel like the emotional reactions from people really matched up. It just, I don't know. And then it has that incredibly 1991 soundtrack, which does not help the film. It's got that DX7, Mark Isham, Enya kind of soundtrack, which is lovely. But for me, I've developed sort of an allergy to the DX7 soundtracks and stuff like that. It just seems really, it struck me as like the rest of it. Yeah, you can't figure out like if there's a plot or what the plot is.
Right.
But it's okay because it's a hang. You're hanging with the movie, and it's
Right.
all about authenticity. It's all about these people who've been these people who've got their way of life, and then you layer on top of it like this Enya Mannheim Steamroller soundtrack on top of it. I was just like, it just would have been a lot better if you hadn't played anything.
Or something with instruments that were physical and not synthesized would probably have been better. Anything.
Yeah, or something really atmospheric, maybe just a piano or something like that.
Yeah.
But the thing that also reminded
something,
that would also remind me of
totally right. Sorry, you're totally right. I mean, it is funny. It went right by me, and I didn't notice. But you always notice soundtracks, and I don't always notice. Even I should, right? But I don't. That's a very valid critique of the film. I agree.
Yeah, well, it's just tough. I mean, again, that the woman, there's Yellow Mary, and then there's this woman sitting next to her who doesn't say anything.
They never explain. Yeah.
And it's like, what is she doing here? Like, nobody's talking to her, and she's not talking. I mean, she's laughing with Yellow Mary every now and then, but she doesn't interact with practically. Oh, she does it maybe a tiny bit.
Yellow Mary and Eula, the woman who was raped by a white guy and is going to have a baby soon.
Right. Well, there's Yellow Mary and Eula, but I'm talking about the woman who's
together a lot. And
right.
and I think that's one reason that Yellow Mary stays behind, because Yuli's going to stay behind. Sorry, people. Spoilers for 1991 movie. Anyway, some of them are going to stay behind, and so there is some time where they're just hanging out on a dune and hanging out in a big tree with big low branches. But you're right. And it's not explained. There are also some big emotional screaming speech moments, which I think the foundation was laid for them, but they are definitely not going to be everybody's meat. Some people aren't going to want to sit there while uh, Eula is upset about the rejection of Yellow Mary by the family, et cetera, et cetera. So there's
I liked it. I mean, I thought it was okay. I think it went on a little bit long.
Yeah.
But she's a really, I really dug the performances. I mean, I dug the people.
Yeah.
I really dug it. And also, go ahead.
Sorry, it's immersive. I felt like I was spending some time on that island with them. It was, and part of it was things didn't make sense. Like it wasn't a linear narrative, and there weren't any character arcs. Well, there were, but they weren't the average arcs. They were really unique. Actually, that's something I really dig in storytelling, is something where you don't have the hero's journey, and you don't have these typical arcs that we see over and over and over and over again. This didn't have any of that. This was something completely other, which I thought was refreshing. But the DX7, totally inappropriate.
Yeah. I mean, it was all the rage then. I mean, it's like a Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush, late Peter Gabriel, DX7 with the fretless bass, played by Pico Palladino or, one of those guys. And that freaking DX7 Fender Rhodes sound, on the wings of love. It's like, oh my God, shoot me. The only thing they didn't use was that freaking bell sound from Taco Bell that Enya used to death, the infamous DX7 bell sound. It's on every Taco Bell commercial when they ring the bell at the end of the commercial. It's a DX. It's that one. And
what do you want to bet? What do you want to bet the director? What's the director's name again?
Julie Dash.
Julie Dash.
I bet she was like, I don't want a soundtrack. I don't want any music. And they're like, well, if you want to release this film, you're gonna have to have some music. And they're like, oh, I know a guy. He's got a synth.
It sounded like Mark Isham. There's it very much sounds of that age of ambient music, and there's a lot of people doing that music at that time. But that's fine. Whatever it is, it is. And then I didn't, other than that, it was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had no idea what was going on. It's like, okay, we're on a beach. I got that. And they're making food. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Roll with it.
Oh, the food. Holy crap.
What it reminded me of, though, one thing that actually twigged in my mind, because what does it remind you of James Blair and Fantino? There's a voiceover.
Days of Heaven. Yeah. And in fact, it had the same.
Okay.
Don't you think about it? It had the same narrative style of the little girl who's
the
sort
voiceover
of
the child
on the outside of the drama.
Yeah.
Talking about what had happened and then carrying on with her journey. And I was thinking of that just as you were talking about
and both with such beautiful
unborn
imagery.
Daughter,
right.
Yeah, where the landscape is one of the key actors of the film. But I looked it up. Yeah, Days of Heaven is 79.
Sure.
78, 79. Amazing. How amazing that movie looks for 78, 79. It's mind-blowing. That was 91, I believe. Daughters
of the Dust was 91, yes.
Yes, so it's 91. So you're talking at least a decade afterwards.
Right.
But I would be, but that's immediately what I thought. The voiceover from the child and the luscious cinematography.
Did you see they made
the cryptic utterances of the people in the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the days that go by, just this kind of sense of a length of time so outside of our of our go to work and go home and do the thing, just something outside, even though in Days of Heaven they're working, etc., but it has that sense of kind of an expanse of time that you got on the island as well.
You're in a sea of grass. It's like a bunch of people. Anyway, Sarah, you're saying?
If I read it right, it was made for $100,000. Daughters of the Dust. It was made dirt cheap. Amazingly cheap. She got some stake money from American Playhouse because nobody in Hollywood would fund it. So she got people to most of the actors were non-union. She got a few union in. So the non-unions were people who already were local Gullah people.
Okay.
And then she brought. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Brought in some actors, professional actors, and got them coached. And she got people to make materials for the dresses and the houses that were made local materials. So pretty much the money they spent was pretty much on the film
$100,000
to capture the
that's
movie.
just enough to buy the film stock.
Pretty
for God's
much.
sakes.
It wasn't digital. And that's
Yeah.
where it's very different than Days of Heaven, which probably cost $1 billion.
$1 bazillion.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
got to tell you a funny story because I know we're getting close to time, but I got to tell you this
We should
story.
round up. Yeah.
Okay, I give me 2 minutes. So I'm
Yeah.
listening to Malcolm Gladwell, his podcast,
Mhm.
and he's got this one called he's got this new series, a new sub series of his podcast called Mistakes, and this one's called The Sony Hack. And what it's about is about the time that Sony released a movie called The Interview, and in return, the government of North Korea hacked Sony, whacked all their systems, and posted all the emails. So Malcolm Gladwell is interviewing the head of Sony Studios at that time, who greenlit that project. And they talk about how they all met and they all read the script for The Interview, and he was so excited about it, he greenlit it, and it tanked his career because it got hacked afterwards. And you should listen to it. It's only the first 15 minutes. And the thing that blew my mind, and the thing I kept saying to myself is, okay, let me get this straight. And he sounds like a wonderful guy. Really, I really like the guy a lot. I really do. But I'm like, you're the head of a major studio. Somebody comes to you with a script about assassinating an actual living head of state. And you didn't think that maybe we should run this past legal? Maybe, and he said, I wasn't aware, he said, and then there's this, obviously there's this big thing between Japan and North Korea. I'm like, hello?
Yeah. Oh, it's faraway land. It's a faraway land.
These people aren't real.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing.
That's so, what do you call that? That's
ignorance
or Orientalism, right?
Yeah.
No,
it's like,
it's just, I was just like, how do you not know that this is going to piss off North Korea? How do you not know? I mean, seriously, it's not like we're talking about a movie that takes place in Laos, okay? Zambia. No, it's North Korea. They're on the headline every night for like 20 years there, okay? They have these
phones,
big parades where like nuclear missiles go down the street, okay? And they've got this nut job dictator who's constantly threatening to blow us up and blow up the South Koreans, and he's kidnapping people and setting things off. How do you become the head of a major studio?
What if this was about France? How would that work out?
Yeah, we're going to make a movie about how somebody kills Macron by burying him under a pile of feces. Oh, that sounds hilarious. Yeah. Let's go. Where's
YouTube's going to flag this one for sure now.
But it's to me, I think it's fascinating because one of the things, and I'm almost done, one of the things that we have talked about many times, Jim, and I know it's something near and dear to your heart, is that, do people occupy positions of power and renown in this society because they actually have some talent, or are they just lucky? Yeah. And I'm telling you, it sort of parallels my thing. Like, are our lives governed more by DNA or by our circumstances? And what I can tell you is that with each additional year, nobody's coming forward with any evidence that it's circumstances. Every year, it's more and more evidence that your DNA, like your lifespan, it's basically your DNA. They said you can go smoke cigarettes. I mean, yeah, it might shift the markers like 1 or 2 years in either direction, but you're going to die at a certain date. And the same thing with the fame. Like you're talking about the beef between Elon Musk and Altman of OpenAI. Are these people at the top because they're truly talented?
I think we're getting a big lesson in that it is neither smarts nor talent.
No.
And it's a very expensive lesson, but I will not go down that road right now because we have gone down it ad infinitum, ad nauseum, and stuff.
So take a
I agree.
Because he's a lovely guy. He sounds like a wonderful guy. He may be a great movie exec, but to make a blunder.
Not Elon, but the movie exec, yeah.
Okay. Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Sarah.
Thanks.
Sarah Elkins, thank you. Thank you for joining us again.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much for the recommendation of this film. I loved it, and we both loved Grass, and not the movie about 420, but about the migration of the Bakhtiari and Bakhtari.
That's Grass, A Nation's Battle for Life. if you're trying to find it.
Tagline.
That
that's
one,
true. Very
that
good.
subtitle. Yes.
And in the case, if you happen to be lucky enough to have the Criterion Collection, we're becoming an advertisement for it, which we're not getting paid for, but it is available. Daughters of the Dust is available on Criterion and
on Canopy, the library app.
Oh, on Canopy.
I'm stubbornly sticking to free, and it's the remastered 2016 version. You can watch subtitles there. So I'm stubbornly sticking to free movies for now.
I haven't hooked it up. I need to hook that up. That's another great option because I'm sick of all these subscriptions. And then, can you just say the name? It was the Dawn of Man?
The Ascent of Man.
The Ascent of Man.
By Jacob Bronowski.
It's old and it's outdated. Some of what he says actually still does hold up. I did kind of research a lot of what he said, and it hasn't been kind of buried in terms of. I watched a couple of other episodes, and it's still pretty current and pretty accurate. But I love that we were able to kind of poke a couple of holes in that because there are some, he has, I don't know what to call it, prejudices, I guess.
Well,
he's
recounting a standard narrative. He's recounting a very standard narrative that people have been saying for the last 150 years, and it has shifted anyway. So, but it's interesting to look at him, and what's also interesting is to look at him and look at how. And then, if you're interested, what I think is the best of all those series is The Day the Universe Changed with James Burke, which I think is one of the most amazing pieces of television ever put together. Which unfortunately does not have the shitty BBC Radiophonic Workshop title music to it. It actually has like a trumpet and like a piano and stuff like that. But James Burke, if you watch a couple of James Burke Day Universe Changed episodes and compare them to Bronowski, you can tell that Burke is really in conversation with Bronowski.
Interesting.
It's very interesting stuff.
I do just want to say real quick, Jacob Bronowski, Ascent of Man, Ideas About Civilization. Thinking about that and Daughters of the Dust, where the people from the mainland are so convinced that they're civilized and the people on the island are these backwards people who need to be rescued from their backwardness. And I was interested by how that tied together.
I think that's a critical theme that we didn't even touch on, but I think you're absolutely right.
Yep.
And it really ties into what the views of the nomadic people. Oh yeah, there's actually so much more we could talk about, but we don't have any amount of time. And I really appreciate your being here, and I appreciate the discussion. And we'll see you all next week.
Okay,
not you,
bye.
Sarah, but we'll see you. Maybe you'll be in the comments.
Thank you, everybody.
Again.
Funny Not Funny is produced by Jim Infantino at Slab Media in Boston. Jim Infantino and Lionel Casson are the co-hosts. Our website is funnyNotFunny.net. The theme music is from the song Wheel from the album Utopia Revisited by Jim. The opinions presented by the co-hosts are ridiculous and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Our intended audience is literally nobody. If you're listening to this podcast, you should probably pause to reflect on other choices you've recently made. Please do not subscribe or leave a rating or review. It only encourages us to make more. Thanks for listening.